BTL coming at you. Good Wednesday, everybody. Welcome once again to BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Matthew, how you doing, man?
72 hours.
What's that?
Classic practice begins.
Yeah, it does. Got another derby going on, too. And we'll get into that in the second half of the show.
22 hours.
Yeah, you're all about the time,
until
dude.
Lake Seminole begins the FLW Tour stuff.
Yeah. All right. So we'll get into that stuff in the second half of the show. We're going to do things a little different today. We have a very special guest, one of my friends and somebody that I've known for a long, long time that I've been involved with this game. We're going to have Mike Iaconelli on in our first segment. And then in the second half, Matthew, we'll get into some stuff that is going down in the bass fishing world. But a great week of shows this week. We had Justin Lucas on Monday. We had Odd Defo yesterday. And we're wrapping up the week with Mike here on a Wednesday. Now, I do want to say this. We're going to bring Mike in here just in a few seconds. Monday is going to be the Classic Odds Show. So I will give away, I think this is year number 9 that I've done the Classic Odds Show. So I will have that on Monday. And then next week, we are off to Knoxville. You're leaving on when? Tuesday or Wednesday?
I have absolutely no idea, Mark. I really don't. I do not know where I'm staying. I don't know when I'm leaving. I don't know what my schedule is.
We'll get you taken care of on that. Wow, the cord's sticking there. All right, we're good. All right, you ready for our first guest, man?
Absolutely.
And our only guest. Very excited to talk to this man and making a return to the Classic once again. And we're going to talk to him a lot.
He didn't have to sneak in this year.
No.
Remember, it's been a nail biter for the past couple years. We've had it open with. We've had a bracket to get in. It's been like the streak is going to end. Well, this year, very comfortable top 20 in the Toyota Angler of the Year standings, and he didn't have to wait until the last day to know that he'd be fishing in Tennessee.
Yeah, all right, let's bring him in now. Mike, you there, man?
How you doing, guys?
Doing great, man. I know a very, very busy time for you, but it's nice that you're getting to spend a little time with the family, kind of catching up a little bit. But next week, a week that you are very, very familiar with, and can't wait to see you in Knoxville, man.
I'm excited. It's a big deal. You know, it has always been a big deal. It continues to be a big deal. It's the biggest tournament in the world, or one of them. So I'm excited. You know, this one too has, of course, a lot of extra meaning, not just for me, but for a lot of the guys. You know, because of the dynamic of what's happening in the sport. And you know, who knows? It's hard to predict, right? We don't have a crystal ball. It's hard to look a couple years into the future, 3, 4, 5, 10, and know what's going to happen for not just me, but for all these guys. But the potential of it being, you know, there's a possibility it could be the last Classic for a lot of guys, and that gives this tournament a lot of extra meaning and value and weight. It's going to be a really bittersweet tournament for me.
All right, man. I want to start off. I know a lot of fans. I know me personally and Matt. You came out with an Instagram post. It was very from the heart, is what I felt when I read it. I think the big concern is with all your fans and with me especially is, are you doing okay and are things getting better?
Yes, and I appreciate it. I've heard from so many people, friends, sponsors, fans across the board reaching out with the same concern, and I really do. That means so much to me, and I appreciate that. I'm doing great. You know, I think, you know, I want to say, first of all, that I'm human. You know, I think a lot of times guys get in their head that professional athletes or whatever are somehow superhuman. And there are a few of those. Maybe Van Damme's actually superhuman. But for the rest of us, you know, most of us are just regular dudes, you know? And we go through the same struggles that normal people go through. And, you have ups and downs, and you have highs and lows. And, I was really just mentally going through a low period, and I needed to recover. And I feel like I've done that in the last few weeks. I've got some great help from my family, and just a lot of people I trust. And man, I feel refreshed. I feel invigorated. I feel more positive than I felt in a lot of years. And again, I just want to appreciate everybody's support.
Well, you should feel positive because you are guaranteed a top 10 in this year's Bassmaster Classic, Mr. Iaconelli. I say that because if you look at the statistics,
yes,
if the trend continues, we'll go back to the 2011 Classic, starting on the Delta. You have an 11th. Then you go 26th, 4th, 47th, 6th, 40th, 6th, 38th. Extrapolate that out. 2019, wow. Top 10, you'll be in the mix, and there's a lot of data to support that.
I'd love if that happened. I would love a top 10 here. My goal in every classic, and you just mentioned it, seems like I'm up and down, right? Like a heartbeat monitor. But my goal in every classic is to be in contention on the last day. That's all, man. That is all you can ask for. That's what you dream about, is when you launch that boat the last day, that you have an opportunity, whether you're a few pounds up or whether you're 5 pounds back. If you're in that range to have a chance at winning, that's really what you want. I'm excited. I don't claim to know this place. I've never fished here before. I don't have a local advantage. I don't have any of that. I can just tell you, because of the situation of this event, sort of because of what's happened with me personally in the last month, I got a lot of desire this year to be in that hunt on the last day. And I'm going to really try to make it happen. At the end of the day, it's somewhat out of your control, but I feel good about this event. I feel good about the conditions. I feel good about how I'm going to fish. I'm excited,
All right, Mike, I want to touch on this too, because I think a lot of people may know or may not know that your television show that you were very, very excited about, I thought it was one of the best documented fishing shows, because I learned more about the areas that you were fishing and the countries and all the history that goes with those vicinities than I ever knew, all right, because of that show. And I think a lot of people don't know that show's it was not renewed. But is there any chance that you guys could be shopping that to another network, or is there a possibility that it might continue?
Yes, that you're correct. And I haven't publicly announced that this will be a first on your show. Nat Geo Wild decided not to renew it for a second season. And obviously I'm disappointed. I personally love the show. I loved the premise. I loved fishing for other stuff, man. It was a great experience, and I wouldn't do it over. I wouldn't take it back. I wouldn't do it another way. I'm so glad I had the experience and the opportunity. And to say I'm disappointed is an understatement. I really had a lot of hopes for that, but in the same breath, just because Nat Geo Wild decided not to move forward with it does not mean that a show like that does not exist. And me, Mark, Matt, me, you've known me for a lot of years. I've got my issues. I've got my negative stuff. I've got my problems like everybody, but I do not quit. You know that. I do not quit. And, it's something Becky and I are going to keep pushing for. I really do feel like the potential to do a show like that is out there with another network, with a different platform. And of course, we're going to continue to push forward and see if we can rekindle something for 2020.
What I thought was impressive, Mark, was I had done a story with him, I believe it was at Oahe last year, between the filming schedule for that show and the Elite Series tournament to do such a good job on that show and finish in the top 20. It had to months just had to go by in the blink of an eye.
It did. And again, just circling back to where my mind was at a few weeks ago, last year was the most incredibly difficult year of my entire life, from the standpoint of not being home, missing the family, missing the kids, missing the normality of being a father, a dad, a husband. It almost ate at me to the point where when the season started this year, I almost couldn't bear it. It was almost unbearable to feel like I was doing it again. But in saying that, I took the opportunity because it was a once in a lifetime chance to do a show like that, to get in front of people that I know I could never get in front of again. Even if the show lasts just for a few months, of course, it'll live digitally forever. But the opportunity to get people to look at fishing in a new way, to get people excited about it all over the world, not just here in the United States, that was an opportunity I had to take. The other positive, and Matt, we did talk about this as well, is it reignited my love for fishing. And I want to really talk about that for a second, because I think too many people lump tournament fishing, competitive fishing, with fishing, and they're two separate things. I got to tell you, I got involved in fishing because I love the sport of fishing. I love the hunt, the chase, the putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And that doesn't necessarily mean competitive fishing. It means fishing. I love fishing. And that show last year really, it made me remember why I got involved in the sport. It's because I love fishing. I love fishing, whether it's a carp, a catfish, a pike, a snakehead, or a largemouth or smallmouth bass, right? It's to me, it's the same. So I love that fact that it doesn't have to be an MLF or a Bassmaster competition for me to be in love with the sport,
Mike, your situation as far as preparing for this classic, it's a little different because, and I may be wrong, I mean, kind of fill me in on this, but when you leave in January, you're kind of packed up for 6 months, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm in a little different scenario. I don't want to say I'm the only one, because I'd put the West Coast guys and any of the guys, in the Northeast in that same category. I'm not the only one, but I work really hard for about a month leading up to the first event to pack that Toyota, to pack that Tundra, and pack that boat in such a way that it has everything I need in the truck or in the boat for probably 4 to 6 months. Becky and I looked at it on the calendar the other day. That rig won't physically make it back to my shop here in New Jersey until the end of June. End of June. So you're a lot of derbies in. There's a lot of sponsor gigs in between there, and I have to have everything I need in that truck. I don't get to make it back home. I don't get to restock from my personal arsenal. I use a lot of Tackle Warehouse on the road, and that's part of how I prepare. So, I haven't been home for a long time. The truck hasn't, but in that truck, I've got what I need to have a good tournament in Knoxville.
So you're telling me a month prior to January, or sometime prior to January, that you actually mentally went through and created a list, maybe even a physical list, on what you were going to need based upon the stops, and actually prepared for Knoxville back in November or December.
I did. I'm so overboard in the way that I prepare for this, but I know I've talked to you guys about it before. I'm an extremist. So I've got paper maps for every lake that we're fishing. I have notes on each lake that I'm fishing in a physical notebook. And to go a step further, I create boxes and bags for each event so I can maximize my time. I can, when I fly back, I'm literally flying back tomorrow morning. I get in, I'm going to hit a grocery store. I'm going to get back to where my truck and boat are at, and I'm going to start working on tackle. When I go in the back of that Tundra and open up that cap, I have a bag created that I'll pull that has a lot of the items that I know I'm going to need for a dirty water pre-spawn Tennessee River event. So I'm the extremist. As much preparation as I put into that, the other part of that equation that's so important is keeping an open mind as you fish. I've got an idea of what I want to do, the baits I want to throw, all that. But as practice starts, and Matt said it, 72 hours or whatever that number is, when I make that first cast and I start idling out, I also have to keep a very open mind to how I'm fishing. And you have to be able to break the stereotype of what you think is going to happen, especially when things aren't working. And so many of my good tournaments over the years, or wins or top tens, have come on things that I would have never guessed I'd be doing in the tournament. There are things that just developed in front of me. That's called fishing the moment, man. The guys that do that usually are the guys that are in the top.
I'm curious because I fish local, regional stuff. I've been around those guys who are like, you're seriously ordering Tackle Warehouse again? How many times over the course of a season will you get a Tackle Warehouse box? I mean, you've got 8 events. You're going to fish 32 to 40 tournament days. You're on the road. I want a ballpark to see if my tackle purchasing habits and my friends' tackle purchasing habits during tournaments are overboard or if they're right on par with Mike Iaconelli.
I can pretty much, Matt, I can give it to you to almost to the exact number. So I put 3 big orders together a year. I put a big order together before the season starts. So usually late December, early January, I put a magnum order together, a mega order that has tons of stuff spanning through what I think I'll need throughout the year. About halfway through the year, usually when the rig gets back for the first time, so mid to late June, I put together a second magnum order preparing for the rest of the year. And then at the end of the season, I put together, and this is in the fall, October, November, I put together one last magnum order that consists of stuff that I need to replenish or stuff that I missed on. You'll see a trend during the year. Swim baits, Neko rig, punch shotting, whatever. If I miss something or I'm like, you know what, God, I didn't do a good job of that this year, I order a ton of that stuff. So 3 magnum orders, and then usually 1 order per event. And I usually do it after the second practice day. I'll order what I'm missing. And that could be, I've only got 2 of that color Rapala DT, and I want to make sure I have 5. It could be I'm out of 1/8 ounce VMC tungsten weights. It could be a plastic that I'm low on. It could be, whatever. And so almost every event, every single tournament, I make at least 1 smaller Tackle Warehouse order. So I represent Tackle Warehouse and they sponsor me, but I'm also one of their biggest customers, bro.
That's what I'm saying. Do you have a direct line? Like, do you call up? Is it like the Mike Iaconelli line and everyone's like, Mike's on line 3. Let's get it going. Let's start putting the stuff in the box.
A-train.
That's what I'm saying. Do you call the A-train?
It's funny you say that because I don't, but you know who does? Becky. I swear they know Becky. They know when Becky calls, she don't even have to say anything. She's like, hey, guys. They're like, hey, Beck. She doesn't even say anything.
Wow.
She just says, hey, guys.
Wow.
And they're like, Becky, what's he need?
Mike,
awesome.
is this classic, and I don't know the adjective, the word weird comes to mind. Is it just going to be weird with everything that has taken place in the industry with the MLF guys coming back and just – I mean, to me, as a media person, it's going to be a little weird.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's going to be 2 big emotions going around. I think one, you could say awkward or weird would definitely be one of them. And I think there are going to be moments of that throughout the event. I think, media day, I think the dinner, the AOY championship dinner, I think some of those moments, there may be some weirdness and awkwardness. I don't think there's any way around that. I think what transpired, that's just a motion that's going to happen by default. It's going to happen on its own. I also think the second big emotion is, and I mentioned a little bit early in this interview, is it's going to be a little sadness. I really think a lot of people are sad or just a little upset that it happened the way it happened. What went down was so important for the sport. So whether you're a fan of FLW or Bass or MLF, I don't care who you're the fan of and you support. By the way, I support all three. But what went down had to happen to advance this sport. But that doesn't mean that you can't feel sad, about it and have an emotional connection to something you've done your whole life. Very few of the guys that broke from MLF have a vendetta against Bass, have ill will against Bass. Very few. Most of them are very grateful for their time at Bass and for the avenue that Bass created, and it created the careers of a lot of these guys, including me. So, the other emotion is sadness. And I'm one of them. I'd be honest. It's going to be upsetting, sad, a little sad to a certain extent, knowing that it could be my last Classic. And I hope it's not. I can sit here and tell you that no matter what, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen with my career in the next 2, 5, 3, 10 years. But I for sure hope that this is not my last Bassmaster Classic.
All right. We asked Lucas this question. We also asked Ott Defo this same question. Do you know where your culling system is in that tundra?
Let me answer, and I didn't hear both of those interviews, so I definitely I go back and listen to those when I'm making those big drives. But I'll give you my version of what Lucas and Ott said. Okay, this is Lucas. Hold on. Oh yeah, Mark, I got it. It's in my Phoenix. Yep, I know where it's at. I'm organized. That was Lucas. Here's Ott. Well, Mark, Jenny's got it in the shower. If not, I'll just call Johnny and get another one.
It's odd on Quaaludes.
Wow.
Was I close?
That was odd on Quaaludes.
Well, actually, Lucas gave his away.
Yeah, Lucas sold his with his
Didn't
last
have one.
It was on his to-do list, and
I don't think Ott knew. He knew it was out there somewhere,
Yeah.
but he was still working on getting all of his stuff together.
Ott was more worried about weighing a fish to cull and then just chucking it back in the lake than he was about the actual culling. And he was also more concerned about being like, oh, I got a 3:30 check-in time, and being down in like Tellico or Loudon, looking down and being like, oh, it's 3:30. Oh, wait, we have to check in?
Yeah, that will throw you off. No, for me, my culling system, again, when I prepared back in January, I knew where this event was going to fall on the schedule. I just left it in my boat, guys. I left it in the spot. Bass Cat has this really cool little tiny hatch right on the front deck. It parallels the big front hatch. It's a small hatch that I put scent and tools and all that kind of stuff. And I just left it in there. I knew this event was coming. Also, when I finally get home late June, I'm big on fishing local derbies as well. And, most of the local derbies here are still traditional culling events. So I left it right in my boat, man.
All right, dude. We only have a couple of minutes left because I know you got to get out of here. But is this going to be a special Classic for you? And what is going to be special about this Classic?
It's going to be special. Yeah, it's going to be real special. I touched on a few of the things. I think the fact that it's potentially the last for a lot of guys is going to make it special. I think where I'm at in my mind right now, where I'm at in my life, it's a special one for me. I almost feel like it's come full circle from the first Classic I qualified for through the Federation. All these years later, here I go, potentially my last one. That's going to make it special. I love the fact that it's in Knoxville at the headwaters of the Tennessee River. I couldn't think of a better place to have a turn. Almost a little bit of hidden meaning there, with it being the start of one of the most famous bass fishing rivers in the world. And then the last part of it, too, is, we've got a big presence here this year at the Classic. And I don't think ever before for us as a family or as a business are we going to be more represented. A lot of my family and friends are going to be at this event. And then, of course, the Ike Foundation. We'll be there at the Toyota booth. We're going to be there at Pure Fishing booth, doing designing lures with kids, giving away Flambeau tackle boxes, getting kids involved in the sport. Man, that's so important. We're going to be there with the Bass University. You know, Bass University is one of my babies. Teaching people to fish, getting people excited, teaching new techniques. That's so important to me, and we're going to be able to spread that education element of it at the Classic. And then the last one, and Mark, I'll give you more credit for this one than anybody, is Ike Live. And I really think that Ike Live for me is definitely one of the outlets that I'll go to. You know, it'll be one of my main outlets as I ease out of competitive fishing, whether that's 3, 5, 10, whatever years that is. And I'm proud of Ike Live. People love Ike Live. We've got a big following. You've helped create that platform for us, and this is a special year for Ike Live at the Classic. Not only are we broadcasting live and we'll have a presence on the show floor every day, but I want to be the first to announce this publicly. We have an Ike Live after party right at the Host Hotel in downtown Knoxville. It's the Hotel Knoxville, right at the center bar. As soon as that Champions Toast ends, and I hope it's me, but whoever it is, we're going to have a lot of the competitors, sponsors, and general public right there at the Ike Live after party. It's sponsored by Founders Beer. Founders, if you haven't tried it, it's an amazing beverage. Matt, I know you're a beer drinker. Come out. We got a lot of free beer.
He'll be there.
Around.
Yeah, no worries about that. Hey, he'll be there.
Travis Manson's already hydrating for the after party.
I think he is. I think you're right. He may already be he may be 2 or 3 drinks in already.
He's already at the after party.
Jeez.
He's there already.
Yeah.
He's got his spot claimed. But
cool.
I invite everybody, the general public, if you're at the Classic, if you're there with your family, friends, come out. Come to the center bar. Say hello. I'd love to meet you. Come out and have a Founders. It's going to be a good time.
Just real quick to say, Ike, he's talking about the special meeting and stuff. It's interesting to hear him say it and say, oh, man, you're just fishing a tournament potentially for the last time. It's no big deal. But to put it into perspective, since Bobby Murray won that first one on Lake Mead in 1971, this is going to be the 49th Classic. This will be Mike's 20th Classic. He has participated in 40% of the Bassmaster Classics that have ever taken place. That's a hell of an accomplishment.
Wow. That's a heck of a stat. I didn't realize that. I'm proud. I am proud of the 20. So hard to make these things. I missed one my sophomore year. I never, in my mind, I never ever wanted to ever miss a Classic again. I was so devastated by missing one. So I'm proud of the 20. I'm proud of the 19 in a row. It'd be a great way if it happens to be my last Classic. And I hope it's not. But if it happens to be a great way to end the streak with winning it.
All right, dude. Man, many thanks for taking time out. Looking forward to seeing you next week. And Mike, I'll never forget how we met in the field of Soldier Field many, many, many years ago. Me and the other 400 people that were there.
That's still better than an MLF event.
Activation. Keyword is activation. I'm pretty sure
Mike.
they were activated at Soldier Field.
Anyway, dude, I can't thank you enough for our friendship, and I wish you nothing but the best. I'm glad to see you're spending some time at home with the family, and everything seems to be going much, much, much better. Can't wait to see you next week, man.
I appreciate it, guys. And by the way, before I let you go, I did want to just mention outfit today, styled by myself and Becky, all J Crew.
Very nice.
Ooh, wow. What are those? What kind of mammal is that on the sweater?
That's a sheep.
It's not a sheep. It's not a sheep. It's a wolf.
It's a sheep. It's a sheep in wolf's clothing. It's a sheep.
Oh, jeez. All right, Mike. He's out of here. There he is. Gone. Mike Iaconelli. There you have it, Matthew.
First time we've ever been bawed at. Probably will be the last time.
He does sound refreshed, though. He sounds like, some time home with the family, trying to refocus. And I think the odds on him there'll be some odds out there for him when we set the odds on Monday that we'll get a little action, but he's going to be in that 5-1, 9-1 range.
Look at his top 10s. He's a former Classic winner, and he's the every other year guy who's in the mix. But I always remember when he is in the mix after day 1 or 2 of the Classic, they'll bring the top 5 guys up onto the stage. And some guys are nervous, some guys are jovial. So Ike is always so intense at that press conference after days 1 and 2. You can just feel that is the moment that he lives for. So he's going to give it everything he's got to be back in that position on the Tennessee River in a week.
All right, we're going to take a break, come back, wrap up the week right here on BTL. We'll be right back.
Sleek new design with easy control file. The clearest images underwater with uncompromising range. Live mapping from the touchscreen. View notifications, video, even Google Maps on screen. And for the first time ever, real-time view of fish movements with live sight sonar. HDS Live. New from Lowrance.
It's about the hours spent getting everything just right. It's the attention to detail. Good just isn't good enough. It's the years spent on the water day after day. When you tie on a bait by Strike King, you're standing on the shoulders of legends.
Pros depend on hydraulic jack plates to get the best out of their boats. Do what they do. Demand Atlas performance. Atlas gets you from the bottom to the top in less than 8 seconds, even with the big 4-strokes. And when you gotta turn right around and get that heavy load back up in rough water, Atlas's innovative design and American-made components will get you there with confidence.
I'm at Depot. Just look for yourself. There's an Atlas jack plate on just about every professional's boat.
The Atlas hydraulic jack plate. You can depend on it.
Hey guys, Aaron Martins here. I'm going to be telling you about a new product by Sunline. It's Siglon PE x8. I've been using it almost extensively all year for my frogging, flipping, drop shotting, shaky heading, worming, jerk baiting. It's by far my favorite Sunline braid. I honestly, I don't say this unless I think it's true, but honestly it's the best braid in the market of any of the braids. Definitely check it out. It's a price point line, $14.95 for 165 yards, and that could last you a whole year, just one spool with using leader material. It's Siglon PE x8. It's my favorite braid, and I think if you use it, it'll be your favorite braid too. AFCO has a new foul weather rain suit called the Hydronaut. A lot of the features that I really like about it first is the speed vent hood. If it's raining out,
You know, how a person gets wet is when you run down the lake and the hood comes down. With the speed vent hood, it's going to stay up. It has a camera mount in the pocket on the chest. The Hydronaut has a 2-layer, 100% waterproof nylon shell. If you're interested in a rain suit that has a lot of cool features that's going to keep you dry, you need to check out the Hydronaut from AFCO.
All right, we are back, wrapping up the week here on a Wednesday. And once again, I want to thank Mike Iaconelli for coming on.
Vintage Ike.
Yeah, especially the clothes.
I do have to side with him. It did look more like a sheep than a wolf.
Yeah.
Do you own any of the button-up cardigan sweaters?
No.
You are approaching that age.
It's all sweater vests. It's the only sweater garment I own.
Do you own anything that is pastel or pink?
No, I do not.
Really? That's
I do not
surprising.
have
I figured
a
Carolyn would dress you up for dinner parties every now and then.
No pink button down or anything. You know what's cool is at the Classic this year, going to be attending the Champions Toast.
You are?
Yeah, and the Champions Dinner and all that.
Did you have to get a ticket for that?
Yeah. You got to dress up.
You don't have to. You used to have to dress up.
Yeah.
But now it is fallen to bedazzled jeans with a sport coat for some anglers. I think it should be a black tie. I've been to one in 2000 and what year was that? 1998. Oh my God. I went to the 1998 one. I rented a tuxedo. My dad rented a tuxedo. I went for the casting kids competition. I was one of the national finalists there. So we got to go.
Is that the year Denny Brower
That was the year Denny Brower won flipping a tube. I think I've told this story. There's the trophy actually behind right there. Mark.
Yeah.
That's it.
Part of history right there.
But as a 13-year-old, I got to go to the Champions Toast, the Champions Dinner. You know, Roland Martin was in that. Jimmy Houston was in that. George Cochran was in that one. And it is, I specifically remember moments from that. It's really cool. It was the first time I'd worn a tuxedo. It's the first time I'd ever met those guys.
All black?
Yeah, it was a black with the ruffles and then the bow tie.
Oh, you had the ruffles.
Yeah, and the bow tie, and then I'll see if I can bring a picture. And I've got a picture. And then I had gold rimmed glasses back then. That was before the days of the contacts.
Did you go to your prom? Did you wear a tux at the prom?
I did not. I went to 3 proms.
No tux?
No, I did wear a tux in one. I went
With
to
the ruffles?
So I was dating this chick back in high school. And went to her prom. She was a junior. And I had a club tournament the next day, Mark. So I had rented the tux. I got the flowers and all that. And then we went to the school after party. And I had a 3-hour drive because the tournament was down in Southern Illinois. So the after party started at like midnight. So at like 1:30, I go into the bathroom. I come out in my PFG embroidered Assumption Bass Club tournament jersey, my hat that had my name embroidered on the back, the cargo fishing pants that half zipped, and I went straight from that prom after party, drove 3 hours to the tournament, was fishing as a co-angler at the time, went on the back deck, and I remember I took a nap during the derby. And the guy I was fishing with, Darren, he had to bump me. He said, "Man, you're in the way of the live well. I got to put this 4-pounder in there.
You
need to wake up."
You were napping. That's a pretty funny story. All right. I want to get to some of the instant feedback. It was blowing up, and some of the stuff, honestly, people, I just didn't want to address that at this moment. Now, during this interview, really wasn't the time to try and address some of those questions. I promise I will try to address some of those questions when we do go to the Classic next week, and I can really kind of get more in depth in some of the questions that people had for Mike. So that's kind of what I'm going to try and do next week. Brian in Lake Norman wanted to know who drove Mike's truck and boat to the Classic. Well, here's what he did. All right, when he left, he was on the road. He doesn't have a driver or anything like that. And he actually drove his truck and boat to an airport, and I don't know which one. I don't think it was Knoxville, but I think it was close by or something like that. I don't know. And the stuff is actually there. And a lot of those guys do that, Matt. Once they leave, they're gone. Then they fly back and forth. I know Skeet does that quite a bit. I don't know where he parks that monstrosity.
I've seen it at some airports as you drive
outdoor
past,
parking.
out of town, and the outdoor parking all covered.
Yeah. So just like he said, man, he leaves in January, and when he leaves, that truck does not come home until maybe the end of June. A number of questions out there that people wanted to know. Do you think some of the guys that are fishing MLF will have buyer's remorse and try to get out after 1 year? I don't really know how to answer that because I haven't really addressed that question to any of the guys. Who knows? Just common sense. Just when you have 80 people in a room, and if you had 80 people in a room buy a certain vehicle and they all bought the same vehicle, you're probably going to have a handful of people that wish they bought a different vehicle. Agreed? 100%. Just because of the numbers. So as to some of these 80 anglers that I have spoken with, they have not come to me and said, man, I wish I would have bought a different car. And I don't think anybody's going to say it. I really don't, even if they're thinking that.
Well, they're still test driving it, Mark.
Exactly. That's a great point, Matthew. I think maybe at the end of the year when the season's over and they analyze and evaluate everything, then they might start to feel a little buyer's
still
reward.
In the passenger seat, pumping them up on how great the car is.
Yeah.
So, it gets out. Maybe they'll get it on the highway and find out it's the greatest car ever.
Brian in Lake Norman, longtime viewer, wants to know, do you think some of the BPT guys are rooting for a BPT guy to win the Classic?
I think the BPT guys, if they're in it, are rooting for themselves to win the Classic.
Yeah,
obviously. I don't think it makes that. I don't think any of them care.
I agree.
If they're not, I'll tell you this. I don't know any professional angler on the Elite Series who has missed the Classic and then religiously follows the Classic that they missed. I would say, in my experience, they like to pretend that it doesn't exist. And part of the reason why they hate doing the Expo is because they have to be reminded that the Bassmaster Classic is going on. Fair assessment?
Yeah.
And so the only ones who really have a vested interest in it are the BPT anglers and the Elite Series anglers and the Open anglers and the Bass Nation anglers and the college angler who are in it.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be reminded that you missed it.
No, that's a good point. And I just said that the buyer's remorse might settle in after the season. I think that thought might cross somebody's mind when they see what is taking place over the next 3 days next week. I think that just might hit them. Now, I have no idea who, but I think just the human aspect of spending so much time of your career with one organization, it's kind of like when you get traded and you spend 15, 17 years with a team and you go back for the first time to the stadium that you played in for 17 years, it gets emotional.
The prop bets that I will amass over the next several days that will be released in conjunction with your odds.
Yeah.
Good ones this year.
How many guys, the over-under on how many guys tear up?
Yeah.
That's got to be in there. It's got to be in there. A lot of people on the instant feedback, though, pulling for Ike.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be cool for him to win.
Be.
It really would be.
He's fished in all three. You got second in the Forest Wood Cup, so he's been in the mix to win that. Obviously, we've seen he's won a Bassmaster Classic, and he's fished in the last year's MLF World Championship. He's one of the few guys who has been in the top 6 of every top-level major championship that you can fish in, Mark.
I get it. All right. Jake in Ohio says guys are going to say that they wish they could fish both. What do you think about that?
I agree. There's a lot of guys who are going to say that.
Yeah.
0% chance that will ever happen.
I agree. I agree 100% with you.
For public and private reasons.
And I've already ranted that there's one guy that can make this happen.
It's not going to happen.
And it's not going to happen. I agree with you. It's unfortunate. Let's see here. I'm still looking, going down. I mean, it's all pretty much the same thing. A lot of it.
You know what's not the same is Seminole this time around for the FLW Tour stop. There are actually a lot of lakes that intimidate me, Mark.
Hey, real quick, before you get into that, I do want to mention this. Our good friend, Errol Duckett.
Yep.
And I'm going to throw this post out here right now. It says, you need to wait until the beginning of 2021 to see who has buyer's remorse. He's got a point. All I'm saying is I think the human aspect.
It doesn't matter whether it's MLS. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
A magazine subscription, buying a car, eating out.
Yeah.
You have that many people that make a decision. There's going to be a percent that it is
That's why I
the
use the
greatest
car
thing
model.
ever, and there's going to be a percent that it's not for them.
Yeah. All right, continue. I'm sorry.
No, all I was saying was, I'll be the first to admit here, that there are many intimidating fisheries out there. I have covered multiple tournaments at Seminole. I have watched and viewed tournaments at Seminole. I've talked to guys who have fished tournaments at Seminole. It is an intimidating fishery, Mark. You
Why
have
is that?
multiple options. You have a lot of sketchy water that you have to run, ultra narrow boat lanes, stumps, static timber, docks, rocks, grass, flats, ditches, multiple different rivers. It's just after, I believe it was Hurricane Michael. There's a lot of different factors. That massive cold front that had just come through. The guy who wins on Seminole this week in the FLW Tour, the third stop of the season, is really going to earn it.
I agree.
A lot of big fish getting caught. Kind of a weird deal. I saw Aaron Britt caught like a 50-pound blue cat, and then Randy Blockett caught like a 50-pound flathead. Apparently the multi-species catfish jumbo bite is on. I've seen a lot of big fish pictures get posted, but I think it'll take an 80-plus again to win, but I think there'll be, like you saw at Rayburn, a pretty big drop-off to what it takes just to get a check and what it takes to win, but definitely a number of anglers who are very familiar with that body of water, and with such a large class of rookies this year, Mark, it will be interesting to see how many guys are intimidated by a fishery like Seminole, and how many of them are able to crack the code.
All right, I want to go over some housekeeping items real quick, kind of lay down what's going to take place over the next couple of weeks. Monday, we will have the odds show. Tuesday, I believe that's when you're leaving.
Okay.
All right. I know I'm leaving on Wednesday. We'll be at the Classic on Wednesday, compiling. We are working on something that is really, really, really cool, and can't really dive into it, but I'll tease it like all promos tease what's coming up. We're doing something that is somewhat unique at the Classic this year, but you're not going to see it. It's going to take a little while for it to develop and to where we can actually showcase all the work that we're going to be doing over the next 5-6 days in Knoxville. Then that next week, Matt will still be on the road. You'll be doing a promo kind of photo shoot, video shoot with a lot of the guys from Duckett Fishing. And then on Wednesday, March 20th, we will have our very first one-on-one live between Gerald Swindle and Jordan Lee. And you have a great point, man. What if either one of those guys win?
Sorry, can't do the classic photo shoot. I got to go back home and do a one-on-one.
So it's going to take place at Lake Guntersville, and more info coming down the lane on that one. Then a couple more days on the road for Matt, and then that following week is when we will kick into BTL once again on that Monday. We are planning to have Bradley Hallman come back in studio.
Probably on that Wednesday, since I will be leaving to go to
Kentucky.
Start practice to drive around Kentucky Lake for a couple days, then have to head to the FLW studios for FLW Live, then back for the FLW Tour, the Costa series that I'm fishing.
Yeah.
And then back for 3 days.
So.
And then a Bass Nation event on Sardis.
kind of crazy over the next 3-4 weeks. And we are going to be I'm going to be producing some best of shows also for viewers and for the listeners on iTunes. Go way, 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 way back with some of the stuff that we did, even when Drew the True Smith
But we're
was
really
here.
not going to be missing, 2 shows next week is our 3 shows next week is all we'll be missing.
2 shows.
2 shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll still have shows next week.
Because we'll have a show on Monday, and then I'll try and get a best of. That following week is when we may... I'll tell you what. I'll put the schedule out. We may be doing stuff on Tuesday, and then Wednesday we have the one-on-one live with Swindle and Lee, and then maybe something on Thursday. So it's just kind of up in the air. A lot of it depends on the weather. Yeah, it is really, really going to get insane over these next 4 weeks. So hopefully the weather will cooperate and things will go well. But Matthew, I have been to, I don't even know, 19, 20 classics. Can't remember.
Your first one was my first one.
Yeah. What year was that?
1998.
So how many is that? 21?
Yeah, didn't you miss one a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
98, 2008.
Is that
2018? That's 21. So you've been to 19. This might be your 20th, Mark.
Might be my 20th classic. I think it's going to be the most intriguing, the weirdest. I use that term with Mike. I just really think it's going to be weird.
Surreal?
Yeah, especially if a certain number of guys are holding that trophy up on the final day. Really, really weird. How about you?
I don't know what to expect. This whole year, I've just decided to take the approach of go into it and see what happens. And you can't look at the past because there is no past on it. There is no past on the Bass Pro Tour to where I was going to Conroe, to where I had expectations. I didn't have expectations. There is no past on the Elite Series without the top. They're the 70 guys who were the Angler of the Year last year. It's never happened before. There is nothing on a Bassmaster Classic where 68 to 70% of the field will not be competing in that organization's tour season the next year. None of this stuff has ever happened, Mark.
It's weird.
So you don't really know.
I know, man. All right, I want to thank everybody. Great shows this week. Thank you for all the instant feedback.
Who's your pick?
For what?
Lake Seminole.
Oh, dude, I have no idea. I really don't. I did a poor job on that. I was really trying to get dialed in on the Iaconelli stuff. So I don't know. How about yours?
Brian Thrift. I'm going to go way off the board on that one.
There you have it. Everybody, The Odd Show on Monday. Don't forget, if you're listening to us on iTunes, please review us and leave a rating, review, and rate us on iTunes. Greatly, greatly appreciate that. And we will be back on Monday. Everybody stay safe, stay warm. We're out of here.